evildoer, we would have not delivered him up to you. Then Pilate said to them, you take him and judge him according to your law. Therefore the Jews said to him, it is not lawful for us to put anyone to death.
So that's what we were just talking about. We can't do it. So we're trumping up a charge against him so that you can do it. So please, you take care of this guy. Now, what? Yeah, so that's how they did Jesus. So they bring him to Pilate. You kill him, because we can't. But we're trying to come up with something that, but he's definitely an evildoer. Now, Pilate eventually sentences Jesus to death. Who is God more mad at, Pilate or the Jews?
The Jews.
Okay, why?
Because they hired the assassin.
Why?
Pilate's just an instrument by which they're using to kill him, but they're actually the ones killing him.
Even though Pilate did it.
Pilate's just the instrument they're using.
Okay.
But they said, being on us and our children and stuff, on the blame, they said that.
Yeah.
So,
But sometimes people say, blame me, but they don't mean it. Right, yes, sir?
Pilate didn't like it because they were forcing his hand, because he saw an innocent man, and he didn't want to do it, but he was being forced politically by the Jews to do this against his will, so he didn't, that's why he was mad at him.
So we think that when God looks at it, that even though the Jews didn't do it, they're more guilty because they knew what they were doing and Pilate been forced to do it. No, I'm not questioning you. I'm just saying, is that what you're saying?
Does judge the heart, but I mean, as far as Pilate was mad at the Jews because they were forcing him to do something he didn't want to do.
Okay, right. Okay, so if you're, this is not a trick question. Are we saying if you're forced into a situation that God is actually looking at your heart more than the action?
Yes.
Because Pilate is the one that ended up killing him.
Mm-hmm.
yes.
The Jews were like, oh, good, God will be mad at us. We made Pilate do it.
Right.
But can we fool God? Is God really fooled?
No.
And he more mad at the Jews because they instigated the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, but that's guilty by association also.
What do you mean by that?
Because they influenced him to do that stuff. I mean, he's not using the power, so he's scared to lose that power,
Right. Okay, all right, so let's keep going. So John chapter 19, verse 6 through 12.
Pilate said to them, you take him and crucify him, for I find no fault in him. The Jews answered him, we have a law, and according to our law, he ought to die, because he made himself the Son of God.
So they know he's saying he's the Son of God and we don't believe him. So we want him dead. And again, what are we going to be guilty of when we stand before the judgment seat? Whether or not you believe that Jesus is the Christ. That's it. Do you believe he's the Christ or not? So, he says he's the Son of God, we don't believe him. Okay, keep going.
Therefore, when Pilate heard them saying, he was more afraid.
He was more afraid. So this man says he's the Son of God, and that actually made Pilate more afraid. Why?
Because he's God.
But why did Pilate heard this man thinks he's the Son of God, and that made Pilate more afraid?
Because he believed. He believed.
He started to think like, oh, what if this really is the Son of God? So he's actually starting to believe this might be the Son of God. I might be trying to put to death the Son of God. The Jews were like, no, he's not going to die. He said that, and we don't believe him. Yes.
Pilate's wife,
But not in this scripture he didn't.
so I said,
No. So, right here, according to John, when they said the words, he's saying he's the Son of God, he said, that made Pilate more afraid. He didn't say, and plus his wife. That's somebody else's interpretation in Luke or a different book. This is how John is telling us that's what he's perceiving. That the thing that made him upset was when they said, that's the Son of God. He's saying he's the Son of God. Pilate went, uh-oh. That might be the Son of God. God knows that. I just want you to know that there are people who don't walk in the church but they walk by it, and they're afraid maybe to do anything in front of the church, because part of them is believing that might actually be holy, right? So there are people who won't necessarily, but they don't go inside, but still part of them is thinking, well, that's holy, that's not, you know. There are people in the church acting up. Who is God more upset with? People in the church, but they're acting up because they really don't believe. You wouldn't act that way if you believed. If you believe God was real and he was there, you wouldn't say some of the stuff you do and do some of the things. But there are people doing stuff right in the church because they really don't believe it's real. People who won't come in the church, but they believe it's real. On Judgment Day, who's going to get, you know, which way is it going to go for them? So we just got to be careful, because the people who are in church every Sunday who are going to be shocked because they never believed, but they were there. The people who never stepped into church, but they believed. Does that make sense? Okay. So he's scared now. Verse 9. And he went again.
And he went again into the
Praetorium
and said to Jesus, "Where are you from?" But Jesus gave him no answer.
Why does he even give him no answer? Because there would be a time for Jesus to witness to him. I'm from heaven and I have come forth. Pilate saying, "Where are you from?" And Jesus doesn't answer because
if he answered that Pilate would believe, and when it falls, you know, and Jesus knows he has to be sacrificed, so he can't be saying things that would.
I'm going to challenge you.
Released.
Challenge! I'm going to challenge that. Your logic is cool, except not. I'm going to challenge you. Okay. Yeah. Because you might not be like me. That to do that. You're saying, I don't want this person to get saved because I gotta die. So I don't want Pilate to believe. Because here's why, okay. Why is Pilate asking?
Because,
this guy might be the Son of God. Really? Hey, where are you from? Why is he asking? But what will that answer?
Because if he answers, you know.
That'll answer what?
Because he's scared.
And because he knows, because he believes. He believes.
There's also a sense of fear.
Okay.
Right. I think he's scared.
Like this guy might really be right. So he believes. He believes. So if I say to you, well, you already know her. But I say that girl in the purple jacket is a millionaire. What? Hey, how much money? I'm asking because I believe. If that makes any sense. You guys say, well, where are you from? Because I believe. Because if I don't believe, I'm going, yeah, whatever, haha, and go off another direction. Pilate doesn't have to go back and ask where you're from, unless he's believing. God sometimes does not answer us because he wants us to take that step of faith. Where are you from? What's your heart telling you? Jesus is saying. There's a thing called faith. And so God does not give us every answer. He says, I want you to step and go knock on that door. Well, what's going to happen, God, if I knock on that door? God doesn't tell you. Well, what's going to happen? The woman's going to have an apron on, and then she's going to say, come and have it. God doesn't tell you any of that. Because he wants you to do it first. And just trust him. God sends us into a job interview. He sends us to places. He doesn't give us all the information. He's never done that in the Bible one time. To anybody. He always has just sent them, and they've got to, when they get there, find out what happens. They've said, Lord, what's going to happen when I get to Macedonia? Well, no one will hurt you. That's not an answer. What's going to happen? When has God ever told anybody everything? He gives you just enough, and then forces you to then, because that's what faith is. Faith is. This chair will hold your weight. Will it? I'm not going to tell. You got to sit down and find out for yourself. God makes us find out for ourselves. He makes us trust. Does that make sense? He wasn't trying to trip up Pilate. Pilate knew the answer already. He knew what his heart was telling him. And so, where are you from? just want to say, where do you think? I'm not going to answer because you know what your heart is telling you. So if God did not answer, please know that that's how he will do you in your life.
Could it be that he couldn't answer? Because things have already set up for it to happen at certain times. Everything was God.
But even if he had answered,
Right.
Pilate would have made the choice that he did.
That's what I'm saying. It wouldn't have made any difference because he couldn't speak.
But it's not like, well, first of all, he doesn't speak because God doesn't, Jesus never said anything unless God told him to say it. So God is saying, don't say anything. Do not answer that question. Because Pilate has to listen to his heart. Because when they came to Jesus and said, give us a sign, he says, there'll be no sign given you except what happened to Jonah in the well. That I'm not going to give you a sign. You want another sign? The blind see, and this has happened, and that. You know what I've been doing. What do you mean you want a sign? I'm not going to give you another sign. You have enough. God gives us enough to believe. We are greedy. We want more. Yeah. God, am I really supposed to do that? Set a nun on fire, then I'll know. And I'm like, no, I've already told you enough. I've given you enough. He now wants you to believe. That's what he wants. That is what it is. Do you understand? Yeah. We want more from God. We want more. Please tell me more. Please, so I'll know for sure this is you. And that's when he stops. You already know it's me. I'm not going to tell you more. I'm not going to give you more. You have to believe at a certain point. If I do it all for you, then where's the faith part? Without faith, it's impossible to please him. It's impossible to please him without faith. So he demands faith. That means he stopped just short of giving us all the answers. He gives us enough that we can believe. And then it's up to us to go, okay, I'll believe. I'm just going to have to trust. Even though I don't know how my rent's going to get paid, I'm going to trust. But Lord, because God wants you to put that, I'm making this up, it's not a prophecy. God wants you to put that $50 in the offering. But Lord, my rent is due. Now, if we already knew the check was on the way, then it's easy to put the $50 in the offering. You already know the check's on the way. But you don't know if the check's on the way or not. Are you going to just trust me and put the $50 in the offering? You do that, then you get home and find out that the check was there. Does that make sense? That's how he works. It's not faith if you already know everything. Then you just do it. Then what's that about? You already know this. You understand? If you already know the check's in the mail, then if God tells you to give $50, okay, doesn't mean anything to you. There's no faith involved. So he doesn't tell you that the check's in the mail. He just says, put the money in the offering. But Lord, if I do put it in, and he won't answer you. Are you going to trust me or not? That's how he operates. And that's faith. That's what he wants from us. And then he rewards us because we did the thing he asked us to do. And he won't give you more if you want us to trust him. So on purpose, he didn't answer. Not to trip up Pilate, or not to, I got to make sure Pilate goes ahead and crucifies me. But he wanted Pilate to know and trust his heart. Okay. So, verse 10.
Then Pilate said to him, are you not speaking to me? Do you not know that I have the power to crucify you?
I have the power. I can crucify you. Go ahead.
And the power to release you? Jesus answered, you could have no power at all against me unless it had been given to you from above. Therefore, the one who delivered me to you has the greater sin.
That's interesting. You don't have the power. God gave you this power. So you're just part of the plan. Because he's saying, why won't you tell me? Why won't you give me an answer? Because I can either let you go if you're free or not. If you just tell me, God gave this power to you. You wouldn't even have this power except to get it from above. So do you understand what's going on? And it's actually, because you actually are engaging me. You're starting to believe. You actually are engaging me. The people who delivered me to you have the greater sin. Because I did all these miracles in their midst, and they decided not to believe. You actually believe, and you're trying to get me to defend myself. You're trying to get me to say, no, please release me. This is what you guys were saying. And God said, no, I'm not going to let Jesus. You say, please, but no. Because we're just acting in his will right now. So if you believe that I'm the Christ, that's okay. But just know that even what you're doing right now is part of God's plan. He's got all the power. It's those people who they know better, and yet they're living. They're the ones that have the greater sin. You're actually torn. You actually are believing, and you're nervous, and you want me to say something, but I can't. This is what you were saying. I can't right now. Because I've already given myself over to God's will. So I'm not going to say something to defend myself. I had that chance in the garden. To be your will, let this cup pass me by. He said it 3 times. 3 times. If it's your will, if it's your will. We were told we can't. Once you pray once, you can't ever ask God again. Jesus asked that 3 times. You've been taught. When you ask God, you can't ask him again. I wish Jesus had known that. 3 times. Lord, please. Lord, please. But each time you got the same answer. Because God's not going to change his mind. God's not going to go, oh, you're right. What was I thinking? But he asked me 3 times. It's okay. But so Jesus had his answer. I'm not going to deliver you from this. So if you want me to beg for my life, Pilate, I'm not going to do it. Because God's already told me, and I know that what he's asking me to do is going to be the best. And that's always what God is asking us to do. Maybe a sacrifice to us, but it's always going to be the best for everybody. So he says, will you just trust me and do what I tell you? So I'm not going to beg for my life. But don't worry. The people God's really upset with are those people, because they don't believe I'm the Christ. They saw all these miracles and they don't believe. Now again, there were Jews that believed, so obviously all the first Christians were Jews, so it's not like God's mad at the Jews. But Jews who refuse to believe, they have the greater sin because God did all this for them and they refuse to do it. He doesn't matter when we respond, like the prodigal son, he's concerned that we respond eventually. Amen. Does that make sense? So the prodigal son went off, God doesn't care. But there's some people who go off and never come back. There's the parable of the son. He says a man had 2 sons. He says, I want you to go do this for me. And the first son said, yes, but never did it. The other son said, no, I'm not going to do it. But eventually came around. He says, that's the one that gets saved. So the person goes, yeah, I'm going to do that, but never really does it, never really believes. God's not in love with that person. He's not in love with your enthusiasm or the fact that you're a person. He wants to know if you eventually do it or not. And even if it took your whole lifetime, even if you're in your 70s and you're finally just coming around, God knew that. He's cool with that. It's the ones who have the greater sin are the ones who just refuse to believe and never come around. Okay, so from then on, verse 12.
From then on, Pilate sought to release him.
Because, why is he so excited to release him? Because he believes. I believe. I want to, please. I don't want to crucify this man. I believe. Go on.
But the Jews cried out, saying, if you let this man go, you are not Caesar's friend. Whoever makes himself a king speaks against Caesar.
So now he's scared. Oh my God, now Caesar's going to kill me. So he makes a bad choice, but he still believes. Is God mad at Pilate? No.
But these are the people who delivered him.
Right, that's who's in trouble.
Right.
That's who's in trouble. He's seeking to release him. He's seeking, so sometimes we mess up, and God understands our circumstance. Doesn't mean it's the right thing, but he's not mad. There's something we think God's mad at us about, he's not. He understands where you were, that was the best decision you thought you could make. It was the wrong choice, but you're aware it's the wrong choice. That's all he wants from us. Are you aware that it's wrong? Because I can work with that. I can't work with the lukewarm people. I can work with the people who are aware, okay, I'm really messing up, I gotta change. But the people who never admit that they're wrong, those are the ones that have the greater sin. Okay, but now we're back with Galileo and him saying, get out of here. I'm not gonna, Acts chapter 18, verse 17b through 18.
Then all the Greeks took Sosthenes, the chief ruler of the synagogue, and beat him before the judgment.
So remember the other, who was the chief ruler of the synagogue at the beginning of the chapter? Crispus. But he believed and got saved. So they elected a new. His name is Sosthenes. Now I want you to know when it says all the Greeks took Sosthenes, the Greeks does not appear in the original manuscript. It says, then they all took Sosthenes and they beat him. The people who originally translated thought that didn't mean the Jews. It did. So the Greeks, they're not the ones, they didn't care about the chief of the synagogue. the Jews who got mad at Sosthenes. They had tried to get Paul killed, right? It didn't work out. So now they're taking their anger out on the head of the synagogue. Why? What happened with him? 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 1.
Paul called to be an apostle of Jesus Christ through the will of God, and Sosthenes, our brother.
Sosthenes had gotten saved. Crispus got saved, now Sosthenes got saved. So they found out that Sosthenes got saved, they're mad at him. So they took him and they beat him before the judgment seat. It wasn't the Greeks, it was the Jews, because Sosthenes had also gotten saved. Paul was getting to certain people, they didn't like that. So, Acts chapter 18, verse 17b through 18a.
And Galileo cared for none of these things.
Yeah, like, oh my God, look at these people turning on each other.
And Paul, after this, tarried there yet a good while, and then took his leave of the brethren, and sailed thence into Syria, and with him Priscilla and Aquila, having shorn his head in Centuria.
Right, so Paul, he stays there for a year and a half, then he finally leaves. But he takes with him Priscilla and Aquila. They were the tent makers, right? Who's the man, who's the woman?
Priscilla.
Priscilla's the woman?
Yeah.
Why saying her name first? Do we normally hear Mrs. and Mr. so-and-so? It's usually Mr. and Mrs. Why did they switch it here? Because when they first talked about them, it was Aquila and his wife Priscilla. But now, in many places, they say her name first. Why?
They make no distinction between the man and the woman.
Because
Does the greater, she does the greater things for the kingdom of God? Greater profit, more active.
Because later on, she actually did more than Aquila, and people would know her name before his. So we might say Paula and Paula's husband, because we know Paula, we met her first, right? We see her more often because Paula's husband is busy doing what he's doing. So we say, oh, Paula's husband. That's not normally how you introduce people. You say Mr. and Mrs. But since we know her better, she's here more often, we're more familiar with what she is doing, we reference her first. They were more familiar with what Priscilla was doing because she was doing more for the kingdom than Aquila was able to do. He was making tents and supporting the family that way. She was holding meetings in the house.
So
You often see her name referenced more than
they had
her.
more, so in other words, they had more respect for her.
Well, they just were more familiar with her work. And I would just literally use Paul as an example. Ronnie is not here right now because he's busy doing whatever he's doing. We don't know what that is, but we see her. So we mention her first just because we're more familiar with her. Doesn't mean that what he's doing is not important. It's just that means as far as we're concerned in this Bible study, we see her more. So Priscilla was doing more church stuff, and Paul's writing to the church people. Aquila was off making tents. So had Paul been writing to the tent people, he would have mentioned him first, right? But since he's writing to the church people, let me mention Priscilla more because she's doing more in the church. Don't forget that in European culture, the women felt equal to the men. So they were doing a lot. In the Jewish culture, the women didn't feel equal, so they didn't do as much. But it's how you feel. Do I believe God will use me? Then I'm going to go ahead and be used. They believed it. When Paul said there's no male or female, they believed that. And so they just did their thing. So if you teach the women, you're supposed to be silent, they'll be silent. If you teach them, God will use everybody, then God will use them. If you teach children, God will use you, then we'll see God using the children because their children don't know any better. And they'll go, oh, okay, and they'll, pray and sing and read this scripture. You teach them, no, you have to wait till you're 13 or whatever the Baptist rules are. Then they'll go, okay, and they won't care anything about God. We told them, this is how you should believe. So we are what we hear. Faith comes by hearing. If you hear that God will use you, if you hear God will do miracles, you'll see them. If you hear God will save you, that's not it, then you only see salvation. So if you preach God will use everybody, please expect it. Like Joyce Meyer. What about? She's like Priscilla.
Well, in her.
Oh.
She takes the lead.
She takes the lead in the ministry.
Right.
Right, yeah. Right, okay. So, Paul shaved his head in Centuria. Okay, where's Centuria? In Romans chapter 16, verse 1, he says,
I commend to you Phoebe, our sister, who is a servant of the church in Centuria.
so there was a church in Centuria. The word servant is diakonos. Where did we get our word diakonos?
Deacon.
She's a deacon, but they didn't want to say deacon, so they said servant. Because people who translated the Bible were nervous. So even though it says they should have said deacon, she's a deacon at the church, they thought, well, women aren't supposed to be deacons, so they just translated servant, but it's the word diakonos. So she says, I'm writing you to Phoebe, who's a deacon at the church of Centuria. And when Paul went there, he shaved his head. Why did he do that? Acts chapter 18, verse 18b. He took the vow. So we're going to get into Paul's vow, because he was so scared. Because God said stay there for a year and a half. He took a vow before God, thinking that would help him. Shave my head and light 7 candles, because he was scared. He was in there for a year and a half. So he took a vow because he thought this vow is going to I'm going to make God keep his promise. We do that. Lord, I'm going to fast for the next 7 days, and that'll make you do what I'm asking. Right? That's why we fast sometimes. That's why we do certain things, because we're like making a deal with God. Okay, I'm going to do this, and that'll make you do that. And so Paul took a vow when he got to Centuria and shaved his head. And it's the vow of do you remember? Nazarite. The vow of the Nazarite. The vow of the Nazarite. So we'll get into that next week, because Paul's on his way back to Jerusalem. And we're getting closer to chapter 19. Chapter 19 is when we dissect every woman in the Bible, how God used them, what their ministry was, and we tackle all the difficult scriptures that say women keep silent in the church, or Adam was before Eve, and why it was there, and what was the context, so we can understand. Because there are women who obviously are anointed of God, but they've heard preached from the pulpit, not on purpose, no one's trying to be evil, certain things about whether women can be used in ministry, and that's always in the back of their mind. They don't want to do too much, but we're going to tackle that so that you will be free. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
He was talking to this about his mother just passed.